Hi, everybody. It's your two big sisters. I'm Sukhmani,
And I'm Elizabeth.
and this is our podcast. Liz, you want to give a little bit of a spiel?
Absolutely. So when Sukhmani and I were in undergrad, we always wanted to create a podcast and just talk about all the conversations that we have in private.
And I think that at the time, despite having ideas and wanting to put it into a fruition, we just didn't have the bandwidth. And so we figured through still being in a very confusing period of our lives, but obviously now wanting to really have the rubber hit the road, we decided to put energy and effort, and here we are today.
And kind of going off of that, we wanted to talk about following passions and what it means to take that first step and why it's so hard to do that. I guess, Suk, the question that I wanted to ask you was, what is something that you've been wanting to do and something that you've kind of also been putting off? And why do you think it's so hard to take that first step?
Yeah, so honestly, for the longest time, my answer actually would have been the podcast. I had thought about it for a long time, and despite even still having things that I need to have, I guess, started or want to start, what really helped, especially with this example, and I think that I can see it transpiring in other parts of my life, is if you really feel passionate about something, like obviously, like I had a dream for this, and I know that you and I both have a shared vision, but in order for the vision to actually happen, you need to start. And that in itself is like a hard thing to come to terms with, and to say that I have that mastered down is wrong because I don't. But something that I'm currently struggling with is I would like to start studying for my GMAT. I've started in waves, so I've done drill sets, I have my practice books, I even have a schedule. Um, but I haven't really taken the time and the consistency to make it a habit as of yet. And it's going to sound so terrible, but the reason why I would say that it's not a habit, just like the other things I prioritize, is simply because it's kind of, I guess, a priority that shifts. So if I have time, I'll do it, but it's not something that is given its ultimate priority. And as a result, it's on the back burner. So that's something I'm struggling with right now. What about you?
So when I actually was thinking about this, I mentioned this to you before we actually started recording, but I always looked at passions and wanting to do something and not wanting to start is also a way of holding on to that hope that it will be successful one day, that
Yeah.
one day you'll start working on it and then that success will just come in. And I don't think that that's a very realistic mindset to have. I think we hold on to this idea and we always hope, okay, once I started, it will be this, life changing experience where I get to just live a whole new life and live the best version of whatever it is that you want to do. But I think that sometimes we hold on to the hope a little bit too strong without actually trying to see if we actually do like whatever it is that we want to do. Even, for example, with the GMAT, not necessarily a one-to-one, but maybe you end up thinking, okay, I actually don't want to go to grad school or whatever
Right.
that is. So I think that we just always hold on to that thing because we hope that one day it will be, our
Yeah.
thing to look forward to.
On that point that you made 100%, I think there's validity all across that. I think that also having a dream and, like you kept saying, putting it onto that one day, it allows us to place that, I guess, the passion and the care that we have towards the dream, but we don't need to like focus on it at the moment because it's too scary to focus on.
Yeah.
And I think it's true. It's terrifying. I think it's terrifying because we're grieving it in theory an outcome that could not happen, but also could. So it's a gamble right there. But I think also, and I speak, this is something that I've learned, and I feel like I've gotten better at it. And thank you, U of T, for it. I feel like sometimes it's easy to procrastinate dreams, not because we don't care. It's just because we care too much and we don't know where to start. And I think that leaving a dream untouched feels safer in our heads because there's nothing that can come in contact and ruin that dream of ours, really. Whether it be keeping it like pristine, so not messy because you don't know where to start, or, minimizing it or maximizing it because, again, it's untouched. Or honestly, truthfully, like you just said, if I study for the GMAT and I decide I don't want to do it, whether it be because I don't want to go to grad school or I prefer the GRE, something small,
Yeah.
it just turns out different from when we always imagined and held on to.
Absolutely. And I think also we're able to daydream. I think that's something that I always like to do. I know everyone does when you have that free moment. You're like, okay, but instead of doing this, I could be doing something else. And then you kind of start building this entire life or this entire landscape that you think will happen one day. But I think that there's a lot to say that you kind of just have to start anywhere. I guess for the question for you is, how did you decide that, okay, this is kind of where I'm going to start my GMAT, or what was that thing that pushed you to take that first step?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to sound really silly, but I have always dreamed about my corporate profession ever since I was little, as well as going to get my MBA. I think a lot of that is also just because being around my family, it was always a big thing, schooling, and etc. And that was kind of the way I connected, and I guess, idolized people in my family, like with their careers, like how they're doing, and it became a sense of something I knew I always wanted to do. But how I kind of got down to presently studying and prioritizing it is because, like you just said, the one thing that I have learned in the last 6 months or 7 months since graduating college is that you can do literally anything. You and I talk about this all the time. You can do anything, and I know it's always put your mind to it, but it's not even put your mind to it. Just take the first step. Even with this podcast, you and I, for everybody listening out there, Liz and I talked about this, as I mentioned, 5-6 times over. And we really sat down with it, and it wasn't that we put our minds to it, is more so, okay, if we're going to make this happen, what is the first step? Like, what is the snowball? And even with the GMAT, I started doing practice drill sets, I would say in November when I had free time at work. And it kind of became a fun thing for me because it was on my work laptop. It still felt somewhat relevant. How I kind of really wanted to manifest this is that I created a schedule, I bought the books, whatever. Even doing that, I would say it's enough, but it's like you actually have to want it. Like you can't just like get the resources and the tools to do it if you yourself don't want to do it. So I'm kind of in that wave of for myself right now. How do you feel about anything that you're dreaming about, and I guess the progress with it and the journey you're taking?
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this to you in the past, but writing has been something I've always had my eye on, no matter what it was. During COVID, I used to write a lot. And then in university, the first thing that I did as a student was join the student newspaper. And then kind of that snowballed into other things. But I have actually started to write again. I've been enjoying that so much. I am more so now trying to write more in the fiction realm. I think I
Yeah,
obviously during undergrad I wrote a lot in like the nonfiction and focusing on economics and just like all of that. But being able to just sit down, and I think I wrote like 2 chapters, but even
that's
just being able
awesome.
to start writing, I think thinking
Yeah,
about it makes me so, so happy. And I'm honestly just excited every day to put a little bit something on the page. It doesn't have to be an entire book, but having something down, I think even having this podcast, I hope that it keeps me accountable, because now that I've put that out into the world, I can't just take that back. So
yeah,
yeah.
no. Whether it be work, podcast, extracurriculars, just anything that we enjoy. How do you find the journey? Because I think that something that you just said that stuck with me is you're doing it intentionally. You're doing it intentionally because you know that even just a little is better than having full sprints. So, how do you think mastery looks, whatever it be in any shape or form, when you're including compassion and intentionality in the process?
I will say something that seems very obvious, but take takes is taken for granted, is that you actually have to be passionate about it, and you have to like doing what it is that you're doing. If you don't, then you're never going to be able to put in the amount of effort that's needed to succeed in whatever that is. I think I was actually talking to a friend, and we were both saying how, there's one specific path that I could take in life. And although I could do somewhat decent in it, I'm not good enough to be able to work hard enough to be better than everyone else. And that's not to say that, if one day I decide to go down that path, I could definitely do it. But I think I enjoy writing so much, and I do it in my free time all the time. I would always write short stories. I always have like a bunch of notes of just different things that I've come up with in the
Yeah,
past. I've always done it throughout high school just for myself, work that no one's ever seen. And even right now, I don't know if my work will ever be seen by anyone, but just knowing that it's something that I can do for myself, and that even if nothing comes out of it, I'm not going to fall into the sunk cost fallacy where, oh, I've wasted so much time and nothing came out of it. If I'm happy with that, then I think that's probably the best advice I
yeah.
can.
And genuinely, like, everything you said is true, and I think that's kind of a core theme that I'm trying to hit on this, is that you can't want something because you think it makes sense. Like you said, you need to actually want it for yourself, because I think it's crazy to assume that growth is upward trajectory. It's not. Nothing about anything that you actually care about and want to make something big out of should be that easy. And as a result of it, I think that having compassion and like understanding that growth can be super uneven. One day, you could be, in your case, writing, you could have like 10 pages that you wrote and you feel super happy. But then the following day, you might not have as much time, or you're hitting a writer's block. And then who's to say the day after that, you're like, you know what? I'm not feeling this anymore. I'm going to scrap it. But it's to say that you're scrapping the book, not the dream. And I think that if you're actually doing something that you care about and you can acknowledge that there is kind of an emotional reality to it. There's days where you need a landing day, you need to recalibrate. It's not that you're being lazy. It's because you know that effort and integration needs to be sustained throughout the entire thing. And mastery isn't about being good at said task or getting better. It's about being better at holding yourself accountable and getting through the whole task in itself. So I think that's a huge thing. Having mistakes, being okay with the mistakes, knowing that your dream can still be the end goal, but that's to say that your journey might take a lot longer than you foreshadow.
100%. Something that I was thinking about while you were saying that is when we actually do start, we kind of lose hope on the ability or the fact that we won't be able to daydream anymore, and that we won't be have this protected idea of what it is we want to do in the future. But also when that future inevitably comes, you hope that you don't have regrets. And I think that's the biggest thing. And so even just doing it a little bit by little bit, and whether it's a perfect journey or it's not a perfect journey, you still get that reality in the future where you tried, you've given it your best foot forward, and whether it works out or not is a whole different conversation.
I agree. I think that speed running and momentum and everything that you're saying, these are all good things to have, but I think again, doing it because you want it, passionate about it, there's integration, you're figuring out how things can layer together, not stack up. I think that's where things start to align a little bit better because there's purpose to it. It's not because there's movement.
100%. At the end of every episode, we also want to ask a question or two to make sure that whoever's listening to this also has something to think about and is able to take something away. And I think for this episode, something that's very fitting is, how do you chase big dreams while also staying true to yourself?
I like that, Liz. And for anybody else that's listening, we will actually be answering that in the next episode. So that is a wrap for today. We hope to see you next week.